Please note that this video is divided into chapters. To go to a specific chapter directly, either hover your mouse over segments on the progress bar of the video or use timestamps and titles of the chapters given in description below this video. In this video, I am going to talk about the topic glycolysis. What is glycolysis? This word has derived from two Greek words. In Greek, glyco means sugar and lysis means splitting. In living cells, during the process of glycolysis, glucose, which is a hexose sugar, undergoes splitting and results in the production of two molecules of pyruvate. And each pyruvate is a 3-carbon compound. Question is why glucose undergoes splitting and when this process of glycolysis happens in living cells. Let's see. In plant cells, during the process of photosynthesis, energy that is obtained from sunlight is captured and is trapped in covalent bonds of glucose. So, glucose serves as energy-rich molecule in all living cells. Whenever cells require energy to perform various functions, they break the covalent bonds of glucose. The energy thus released is used in synthesis of adenosine triphosphate, which act as energy currency in all living cells. This process of oxidation of organic substance and production of adenosine triphosphate is the major function of the process cellular respiration. Though it is an oxidation process, it can happen either in the presence of oxygen or in the absence of oxygen. If it happens in the absence of oxygen, it is known as anaerobic respiration. If it happens in the presence of oxygen, it is said to be aerobic respiration. In aerobic respiration, complete breakdown of glucose happens and that results in production of 36 to 38 ATP molecules per single glucose molecule. In the case of anaerobic respiration, only 2 ATP molecules are produced. So, if we compare the efficiency, aerobic respiration is 18 to 19 times more efficient than that of anaerobic respiration. Whether anaerobic or aerobic, glycolysis is the first step. Though several scientists made effort to understand this pathway, complete elucidation was given by 3 scientists, namely Emden, Meyerhoff, and Parnas. So, glycolysis is also known as EMP pathway or Emden-Meyerhoff-Parnas pathway. In this video, we will see importance of glycolysis. Then we will see overview, various reactions and net equation of glycolysis. In the later half, we will study different functions of the process, how this is regulated, and how this ancient pathway is still prevailing in all living cells. Finally, we will see what happens to pyruvate, which is the end product of glycolysis. Let's move on to importance of glycolysis. Whatever way we characterize organisms on this earth, like aerobic, anaerobic, multicellular or unicellular, prokaryotes or eukaryotes, plants or animals, great majority of them, when they perform cellular respiration, they carry out glycolysis as the first step. 2 important things about glycolysis is it happens in cytoplasm. This pathway do not require any special organelle. Second thing is it can happen in the presence or even in the absence of oxygen, that is, it is not dependent on oxygen. During glycolysis, only splitting of glucose into pyruvate happens. This pyruvate in eukaryotes, if it enters into mitochondria, which is powerhouse of the cell, undergoes complete breakdown so that large number of ATP molecules can be obtained. But in our body, red blood corpuscles at maturity, they lack all organelles including mitochondria. But they have their own functions to perform. So for those functions, they acquire energy mainly from this process, glycolysis. Now let's see overview of glycolysis. Conversion of glucose into pyruvate involves 10 steps. Steps 1 to 5 is said to be investment phase because it consumes energy. During this phase, 2 adenosine triphosphate molecules are utilized in order to activate glucose. Step 6 to 10 is known as payoff phase because it produces energy. In this phase, 4 ATP molecules are produced. Though 4 ATP molecules are produced, as 2 ATP molecules are consumed, the net gain from glycolysis is just 2 ATP molecules. Apart from that, from glycolysis, 2 NADH molecules are also produced. These reduced nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, if they can pass on the electrons to electron transport chain, that can result in additional synthesis of adenosine triphosphate molecules. But this is possible only in aerobic respiration, which requires oxygen. Now let's see glycolysis in little bit more detail. Consider this as a molecule of glucose. Glucose is a 6-carbon compound. So all these white circles represents carbon atoms. Wherever you see green circle, it represents phosphate group. As soon as glucose enters into the cell, it should be retained within the cell so that it can enter into the process of glycolysis, which is a 10-step process. So first, phosphate is added to glucose so that it cannot leave the cell. Adding phosphate to the 6th carbon results in the formation of glucose 6-phosphate. Glucose 6-phosphate is comparatively more reactive than glucose and is less stable than glucose. But after splitting, it should be able to form 2 molecules of 3-phosphoglyceraldehyde. So it should be able to accept one more phosphate, which is not possible with its structure. So glucose 6-phosphate undergoes isomerization and form fructose 6-phosphate, where carbon 1 is also available free so that it can bind with another phosphate. So fructose 6-phosphate, after accepting phosphate in the first carbon, it gets converted into fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. If you see this, fructose 1,6-bisphosphate is comparatively more energetic than glucose, less stable than glucose. It can easily undergo splitting and can give rise to 2 molecules. One is dihydroxyacetone phosphate and the other one is 3-phosphoglyceraldehyde. Both are isomers. DHAP is a keto form and PGAL is the aldehyde form. Of the 2 isomers, only aldehyde form can enter directly into the second phase of glycolysis. Whereas keto form, in order to enter into the second phase, first it must be converted into its aldehyde form. So at the end of phase 1, 1 molecule of glucose has given rise to 2 molecules of 3-phosphoglyceraldehyde, and this required 2 molecules of adenosine triphosphate. That is the reason why this phase is known as investment phase. In the second phase, 2 molecules of 3-phosphoglyceraldehyde undergo changes and results in the formation of 2 molecules of pyruvate. This phase is also known as payoff phase because there is production of 4 molecules of adenosine triphosphates and 2 molecules of reduced nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. In order to convert 4 molecules of adenosine diphosphate into 4 molecules of adenosine triphosphate, 4 phosphate groups are required. 2 phosphates comes from 2 molecules of 3-phosphoglyceraldehyde and 2 phosphates comes from inorganic phosphates. These inorganic phosphates are not directly added to ADP molecules. Instead, they are added to intermediates of glycolysis, and through these intermediates, they are added to ADP molecules, forming ATP molecules. Addition of phosphate to intermediate requires energy. That energy is provided by oxidation reaction. The substrate that undergoes oxidation reaction here is phosphoglyceraldehyde. Upon oxidation, it forms phosphoglyceric acid or phosphoglycerate. During oxidation reaction, there is removal of hydrogen or electron from the first carbon of these molecules. The hydrogen that is removed is accepted by oxidized NAD, resulting in the formation of reduced NAD. During this process of removal, energy is released and that energy is utilized for adding phosphate group to the same carbon. The compound that is formed at the end of simultaneous oxidation and phosphorylation reaction is 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate, as it contains two phosphates, one with the first carbon and the other with the third carbon. This 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate is a good phosphorylating agent. So it transfers phosphate that is attached with the first carbon to two molecules of ADP and forms two molecules of ATP. So after transferring one phosphate group, this gets converted into 3-phosphoglycerate. You see in the picture, it has phosphate now only attached with the third carbon. But from this carbon, it is not easy for it to transfer this phosphate group. So it shifts the phosphate from the third carbon to the second carbon and then it undergoes dehydration. So after transferring the phosphate group to the second carbon, the compound that is formed is 2-phosphoglycerate. And after dehydration, it forms a compound known as phosphoenol pyruvate. Phosphoenol pyruvate has higher phosphoryl transfer potential. So it can easily transfer phosphate to two molecules of ADP and can form two molecules of ATP. So in the second phase of glycolysis, totally 4 ATP molecules are formed. The end product that is formed at the end of glycolysis is pyruvate. So this is about the overview of glycolysis. Apart from that, if you look at the diagram, two things will be very clear. Glucose, which enters into the first step, and pyruvate, which comes out of the last step. Only these two molecules do not have phosphate. All other intermediates, either they have single phosphate or they have two phosphates. Another thing that we have to note down here is, from glucose up to fructose 1,6-bisphosphate, the compounds contain 6 carbons. All other intermediates and the final product of glycolysis contains only 3 carbons in them. Before seeing various steps of glycolysis in detail, let's understand one important point. During glycolysis, we say glucose undergoes splitting. But it is not glucose that undergoes splitting directly. Instead, it gets converted into fructose 1,6-bisphosphate and then undergoes splitting. If you remember first phase of glycolysis where 6-carbon sugar undergoes splitting and forms 2 3-carbon compounds that are phosphorylated. In order to form such compounds, the 6-carbon compound should be able to bind with 2 phosphates. You see the structure of glucose where only 6th carbon alone is lying outside the ring, whereas all other carbons are present within the ring with which it cannot bind with phosphate. So, glucose with the help of 6th carbon binds with phosphate and forms glucose 6-phosphate. As it is not enough, as it has to bind with one more phosphate, it gets isomerized into fructose 6-phosphate. If you look at the structure of fructose, it has 6th carbon as well as 1st carbon lying outside the ring. So with the help of both the carbons, it binds with phosphate groups. So this structure of fructose 1,6-bisphosphate is very suitable for it to form 2 3-carbon compounds that are phosphorylated. You see, when it undergoes splitting here, as it is more or less symmetrical, it forms 2 3-carbon compounds. So this side you see 3 carbons with 1 phosphate. On this side again 3 carbons with 1 phosphate. Though several sugars are available, glucose is the most preferred respiratory substrate, and that is the substrate that enters into the process of glycolysis normally. But in plants, if you see, there may be sucrose, which is the end product of glycolysis, or starch, which is the storage product. Whatever it is, before entering into glycolysis, it should be converted into either glucose or fructose. If it is glucose, it directly enters into glycolysis from the first step. If it is fructose, it gets converted into fructose 6-phosphate and then enters into glycolysis. Let's begin with the first step in glycolysis. Glycolysis starts with the molecule of glucose. If it is autotrophic cell, it can be produced within the cell. But if it is heterotrophic cell, it is transported through specific transporter proteins. Once it reaches inside the cell, the principal fate is to undergo phosphorylation. Phosphorylation means addition of phosphate. Phosphoryl group is added from adenosine triphosphate to hydroxyl group on 6th carbon of glucose molecule. This addition of phosphate converts glucose into glucose 6-phosphate. This has one primary function. After phosphorylation, glucose 6-phosphate cannot cross the membrane and will be retained within the same cellular compartment. After donating a phosphate group, adenosine triphosphate gets converted into adenosine diphosphate, which has only 2 phosphate groups. Due to addition of phosphate to the hydroxyl group of 6th carbon, there is displacement of proton into the medium. This reaction is phosphorylation reaction. Phosphorylation means addition of phosphoryl group to a substrate. The enzyme that has catalyzed this reaction is hexokinase. Kinases are group of enzymes that are responsible for transfer of phosphate group from phosphate donating molecule to suitable substrate. As the substrate involved here is a hexose sugar, the name of the enzyme is hexokinase. This enzyme requires magnesium as a cofactor. And the first step of glycolysis is an irreversible step. That is, the reaction cannot occur in the opposite direction. In the next step of glycolysis, glucose 6-phosphate undergoes isomerization and forms fructose 6-phosphate. Glucose 6-phosphate contains 6-membered pyranose ring and is an aldehyde form, whereas fructose 6-phosphate contains 5-membered furanose ring and is a keto form. Glucose 6-phosphate, after getting converted into fructose 6-phosphate, can bind with one more phosphate molecule with its first carbon. If you look at the structure of glucose 6-phosphate, it was able to bind with only one phosphate because only one carbon was available outside the ring. Whereas here, 2 carbons, carbon 1 and carbon 6 are lying outside the ring. Already carbon 6 contains one phosphate. Now, this carbon is also available so that it can bind with another phosphate. This conversion is said to be isomerization reaction. And the enzyme that catalyzes isomerization is known as isomerase. As the substrate is glucose 6-phosphate, the name of the enzyme is phosphoglucose isomerase. And this reaction is reversible reaction. In the third step of glycolysis, there is phosphorylation of fructose 6-phosphate by ATP to form fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. As the name suggests, fructose 6-phosphate contains only one phosphate with the 6th carbon, whereas the product fructose 1,6-bisphosphate contains 2 phosphates, one with the first carbon and the other with the 6th carbon. After donating a phosphoryl group, ATP gets converted into ADP. And due to the addition of phosphoryl group with the first carbon, there is displacement of proton into the medium. This step is an irreversible step and is known as committed step of glycolysis because once there is formation of fructose 1,6-bisphosphate, it will definitely proceed with the rest of the steps in glycolysis. This reaction is known as phosphorylation reaction, as there is addition of phosphoryl group to the substrate, and the enzyme that catalyzes this function comes under the group kinases. As the substrate is fructose 6-phosphate, full name of the enzyme is phosphofructokinase. As pace of glycolysis is dependent on the level and activity of this particular enzyme, this enzyme is also known as pacemaker of glycolysis. And this enzyme requires magnesium as a cofactor. In the fourth step of glycolysis, fructose 1,6-bisphosphate undergoes cleavage or splitting. This is the open chain form of fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. This is the first carbon and this is the sixth carbon, and both contains phosphate. After cleavage or splitting, this half gives rise to dihydroxyacetone phosphate and this half gives rise to glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. So if you observe, after splitting, the 6-carbon compound has given rise to two 3-carbon compounds and each is phosphorylated. This reaction is known as aldol cleavage. And the enzyme that catalyzes this reaction is known as aldolase. Enzyme has derived its name because of its ability to carry out reverse aldol condensation reaction. This fourth step is a reversible process and aldolase requires magnesium as a cofactor. Of the two products that are formed, glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate is directly on the pathway of glycolysis, whereas dihydroxyacetone phosphate cannot directly take part. Instead, it gets converted into glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate and then enter into the next step of glycolysis. In order to take part in subsequent steps of glycolysis, dihydroxyacetone phosphate gets converted into glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. If you look at both the compounds that are products of cleavage of fructose 1,6-bisphosphate, both are triose phosphates, that is, both contain 3 carbons and 1 phosphate. DHAP is a ketose, whereas glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate is a aldose. This conversion of DHAP into GAP is known as isomerization because both have same molecular formula but different structure. And in general, the enzyme that catalyzes isomerization will come under the group isomerases. As the substrate is triose phosphate, full name of the enzyme is triose phosphate isomerase. This is the reversible process. At the end of fifth step, if you observe, from one molecule of fructose 1,6-bisphosphate, two molecules of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphates have been formed. First molecule is directly formed from fructose 1,6-bisphosphate at the end of step 4, and the second GAP is formed from the combination of step 4 as well as step 5. Now we have reached end of phase 1 of glycolysis. At the end of investment phase, if you observe, there was utilization of 2 molecules of ATP and we have 2 molecules of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate in our hand. In the next phase, that is payoff phase, let's see how these molecules get converted into pyruvate and how ATP molecules are produced. In the sixth step of glycolysis, glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate undergoes oxidation as well as phosphorylation. During oxidation, there is removal of hydride ion. Hydride ion contains 2 electrons and 1 proton. The hydride ion that is removed is transferred to oxidized NAD. Oxidized NAD, upon accepting hydride ion, undergoes reduction and forms reduced NAD. Here, oxidation happens in 2 ways. There is removal of hydrogen as well as addition of oxygen. But addition of oxygen is coupled with phosphorylation. During phosphorylation, hydrogen of hydrogen phosphate is removed and gets released as proton into the medium. Oxygen along with the phosphoryl group gets transferred to carbon 1 of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, forming 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate. If you look at both the compounds, you will know that aldehyde group in glyceraldehyde gets converted into carboxylate group in glyceric acid. As it contains two phosphates, one with the carbon 1 and the other with the carbon 3, this product is known as 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate. Bis means 2. Though water is not directly taking part in this reaction, oxygen of this carboxylate group comes from hydroxyl group of hydrogen phosphate. And this hydroxyl group, originally this phosphate has gained from water molecule. Though we do not write water molecule directly here, there is utilization of one molecule of water at the step of glycolysis. This reaction is catalyzed by glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate dehydrogenase. From the name itself, we can understand this enzyme is responsible for removal of hydrogen from the substrate glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. This step is a reversible process. That is, it can happen in both the directions. If you remember, at the end of 5th step of glycolysis, there is formation of two molecules of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. Whatever that we have seen so far is for only single molecule of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, but actually two molecules participate in the 6th step. So everything should be multiplied by 2. So at the end of 6th step, there is formation of two molecules of 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate and two molecules of reduced NAD. During this reaction, two protons are let into the solution. 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate that is formed as a product of 6th step is high potential phosphorylated compound, and that energy it has gained only from the oxidation reaction. In the 7th step of glycolysis, high phosphoryl transfer potential of 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate is utilized to generate a molecule of adenosine triphosphate. This is the first ATP generating reaction in glycolysis. This 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate, after giving away phosphate to ADP, gets converted into 3-phosphoglycerate. If you look at the product, you will know phosphate is found only with the 3rd carbon. But here, oxygen that was obtained from inorganic phosphate forms component of carboxylate group and is retained by 3-phosphoglycerate. This reaction is a phosphoryl transfer reaction. Enzyme that is responsible for transfer of phosphoryl group is kinase. As the substrate is 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate, full name of the enzyme is phosphoglycerate kinase. This enzyme requires magnesium ion as its cofactor. And 7th step of glycolysis is a reversible process. What I have written here is for one molecule of 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate. As two molecules of 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate participate in this reaction, everything should be multiplied by 2. So at the end of 7th step of glycolysis, we have two molecules of 3-phosphoglycerate and two molecules of adenosine triphosphate. In the 8th step of glycolysis, two molecules of 3-phosphoglycerate undergoes isomerization and forms two molecules of 2-phosphoglycerate. If you look at the substrate and product, both are phosphoglycerate molecules. The only difference is position of phosphoryl group. In the substrate, phosphoryl group is attached with the 3rd carbon. In the product, phosphoryl group is attached with the 2nd carbon. This is a reversible process and this reaction is catalyzed by enzyme that comes under the category mutase. Mutase is a type of isomerase which is responsible for catalysis of intramolecular shift of chemical groups. The chemical group that is undergone shifting here is phosphoryl group. The specific name of enzyme that has catalyzed this reaction is phosphoglycerate mutase. Because the substrate here is a phosphoglycerate molecule. Shifting of phosphoryl group from third carbon to second carbon increases phosphoryl transfer potential of phosphoglycerate molecule. In the ninth step of glycolysis, there is formation of an enol due to dehydration of the substrate to phosphoglycerate. During dehydration, there is removal of hydrogen from the second carbon and hydroxyl from the third carbon, together forming water molecule. The enol that is formed is phosphoenol pyruvate. Group transfer potential of phosphoryl group is significantly enhanced by this dehydration reaction. This reaction is catalyzed by the enzyme enolase and is a reversible process. As two molecules of 2-phosphoglycerate enters into the ninth step of glycolysis, there is production of 2 molecules of water and 2 molecules of phosphoenol pyruvate. Now we have come to the last step of glycolysis, that is 10th step. In this step, there is irreversible transfer of phosphoryl group from high potential phosphoenol pyruvate to adenosine diphosphate. This results in the production of adenosine triphosphate. A proton is then added to the third carbon in order to form the product pyruvate. Pyruvate is the simplest alpha keto acid. In pyruvate, you could see there is keto group lying next to the carboxylate group. This irreversible phosphoryl transfer reaction is catalyzed by the enzyme pyruvate kinase. And this enzyme needs magnesium ion as its cofactor. As 2 molecules of phosphoenol pyruvate enters into the 10th step of glycolysis, everything should be multiplied by 2, because whatever we have seen so far is for single molecule of phosphoenol pyruvate. So from the 10th step of glycolysis, we get 2 molecules of pyruvate and 2 molecules of adenosine triphosphate. Now that we have seen all the 10 steps in glycolysis, at the end of glycolysis, we need to remember certain points that I have listed out here. This is the balanced chemical equation for conversion of 1 molecule of glucose into 2 molecules of pyruvate. As this is an oxidation process, during this process, there is release of 4 hydrogen atoms. 4 hydrogen atoms means 4 protons and 4 electrons. Now, these electrons have to be removed by electron acceptor. The electron acceptor that takes part in glycolysis is oxidized NAD. Oxidized NAD accepts only hydride ions, not the hydrogen atoms. That is, 1 molecule of oxidized NAD can accept 2 electrons and 1 proton to form 1 molecule of reduced NAD. As 4 electrons needs to be removed, there is participation of 2 molecules of oxidized NAD, which upon accepting 2 hydride ions gets converted into 2 molecules of reduced NAD. That is about pyruvate and NADH. Let's see about ATP molecules. During glycolysis, there is utilization of 2 molecules of adenosine triphosphate, one during conversion of glucose into glucose 6-phosphate, and the second molecule was utilized during conversion of fructose 6-phosphate into fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. There is production of 4 molecules of ATP in the second phase of glycolysis. 2 ATP molecules are produced during conversion of 2 molecules of 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate into 3-phosphoglycerate. Similarly, there is utilization of 2 ATP molecules during conversion of 2 molecules of phosphoenol pyruvate into pyruvate. Though 4 ATP molecules are produced, as 2 ATP molecules are utilized in the first phase, net gain of ATP is 2. This is the net equation of glycolysis. In this equation, you could see one molecule of glucose has undergone partial oxidation and formed 2 molecules of pyruvate. During this partial oxidation, electrons that are removed are accepted by 2 molecules of oxidized NAD, forming 2 molecules of reduced NAD. From this process of glycolysis, there is net gain of 2 molecules of adenosine triphosphate from 2 molecules of adenosine diphosphate. Apart from these, there is utilization of 2 inorganic phosphates during the process of glycolysis. These 2 ATP molecules are formed from the process glycolysis by substrate level phosphorylation. This is possible whether oxygen is present or not. But if oxygen is present, there is possibility for additional synthesis of ATP molecules by the process oxidative phosphorylation. For that to happen, electrons of these 2 molecules of reduced coenzymes should be transferred to oxygen, which is present as terminal electron acceptor in electron transport chain. But these reduced coenzymes, which are formed during glycolysis, are present in the cytoplasm, whereas oxygen that is going to act as electron acceptor is present in the inner membrane of mitochondria. As these NADH molecules cannot cross the membrane of mitochondria, they pass on the electrons through different shuttle systems. Based on the shuttle system, the molecule that is going to accept these electrons also become different. If FAD accepts these electrons and pass on these electrons to oxygen, there will be production of 2 ATP molecules. On the other hand, if NAD accepts these electrons, upon passing these electrons to oxygen, there will be production of 3 ATP molecules. This is for single NADH molecule that transfers electron. As 2 NADH molecules are formed from the process of glycolysis, there will be production of 4 to 6 ATP molecules by the process oxidative phosphorylation. So, in the presence of oxygen, total number of ATP molecules by the process of glycolysis will be 6 to 8. 2 from the process of substrate level phosphorylation and 4 to 6 from the process of oxidative phosphorylation. Now let's see various functions of glycolysis. The 2 main functions of glycolysis is to generate ATP molecules that are energy currency of the cell and to provide building blocks for various anabolic reactions, that is, biosynthetic reactions. If you see, during glycolysis, there is partial oxidation of hexose. Specifically, glucose undergoes partial oxidation and forms 2 molecules of pyruvate. Though 4 ATP molecules are produced, the net gain from the process of glycolysis is 2 ATP molecules. And there are organisms on this earth that are totally dependent on glycolysis for their energy requirement. Glycolysis is needed for synthesis of various biomolecules. For example, dihydroxyacetone phosphate, which is an intermediate in glycolysis, is needed for synthesis of fat. Pyruvate, which is the end product of glycolysis, is needed for synthesis of an amino acid alanine. And this pyruvate, which is the end product of glycolysis, if it enters into mitochondria during aerobic respiration through TCA cycle, it can produce number of biomolecules, which includes various amino acids, nucleotides, fatty acids, porphyrins, These are just to name a few. Though there is net gain of only 2 ATP molecules from the process glycolysis, if the end product of glycolysis, that is pyruvate, and electrons that are gained by NADH, if they enter into mitochondria during aerobic respiration, there can be additional production of 34 to 36 ATP molecules. Just now we have seen that the two main functions of glycolysis is production of ATP molecules that are needed for energy requirements of the cell and providing building blocks for various biosynthetic reactions. Regulation of glycolysis depends upon availability of these two things. If adenosine triphosphates and building blocks are available in plenty, rate of glycolysis decreases. If ATP and building blocks are not available enough, in such case, rate of glycolysis increases. In any metabolic pathway, enzymes that regulates irreversible steps acts as control points. In the case of glycolysis, there are 3 irreversible steps. They are step 1, step 3 and step 10. Hexokinase is the enzyme that controls step 1, during which glucose is converted into glucose 6-phosphate. Phosphofructokinase controls step 3, and during this step, there is conversion of fructose 6-phosphate into fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. And the final step, that is the 10th step, is regulated by pyruvate kinase, and during this step there is conversion of phosphoenol pyruvate into pyruvate. Though there are 3 irreversible steps, step 3 is said to be committed step, because once there is formation of fructose 1,6-bisphosphate means cell is committed to enter into subsequent steps of glycolysis. The enzyme that controls this step, that is phosphofructokinase, is called as pacemaker of glycolysis. Pace of glycolysis is dependent upon this particular enzyme. That is why it is known as pacemaker of glycolysis. Now let's see about regulation of the enzyme phosphofructokinase. Consider this as the enzyme phosphofructokinase. This blue colored region represents allosteric site or regulator site, and this red colored region represents catalytic site. This enzyme shows different kinds of regulation under different conditions. Whenever energy is very high, there will be accumulation of adenosine triphosphate molecules. Similarly, whenever building blocks are higher inside the cells, in such case, there will be accumulation of citrate molecules, which are early intermediate in TCA cycle. Similarly, when there is energy availability is lesser, in such cases, there will be accumulation of adenosine monophosphates. Each of these molecules have effect on the regulation of enzyme activity of phosphofructokinase. If energy level is very high, this adenosine triphosphate will go and bind with this allosteric site. Binding of adenosine triphosphate with the allosteric site or regulator site alters conformation in the enzyme. That in turn alters affinity of the catalytic site for its substrate fructose 6-phosphate. So, binding of fructose 6-phosphate becomes lesser. So, enzyme activity also becomes lesser. Similarly, whenever there is accumulation of building blocks, the citrate that has accumulated, it also has inhibitory effect on the enzyme. This citrate do not directly bind with the allosteric site. Instead, it enhances the inhibitory effect of adenosine triphosphate, thereby it inhibits the rate of glycolysis. Whenever energy charge is higher or if building blocks are available in plenty inside the cells, unnecessary breakdown of glucose is avoided by regulation of this enzyme. But when energy level is lesser, in such case, adenosine monophosphate molecules that has accumulated inside the cell causes enhancement of enzyme activity. This do not go and bind with the allosteric site directly. Instead, it causes reversal of inhibitory effect of adenosine triphosphate. Thereby, the catalytic site binds with the fructose 6-phosphate. There is enhancement of enzyme activity and rate of glycolysis increases. So this is how phosphofructokinase is regulated during glycolysis. Now let's see about the other two enzymes. In the case of hexokinase, the product that is formed is glucose 6-phosphate. When this glucose 6-phosphate is not utilized for the next step, this product gets accumulated, and this in turn inhibits the enzyme activity of hexokinase. In the case of pyruvate kinase, apart from pyruvate, there is also production of adenosine triphosphate molecules. Pyruvate kinase is also an allosteric enzyme like that of phosphofructokinase. So when energy charge is higher, this adenosine triphosphate will bind with the allosteric site and it causes conformational change in the enzyme, thereby affinity for enzyme towards its substrate becomes lesser, and thereby there is reduction in the rate of glycolysis. So this is how enzymes are involved in regulation of various steps in glycolysis. Glycolysis is an ancient pathway and it is one of the earliest biochemical processes to evolve on this earth. Now let's see why organisms in the past were able to perform this metabolic pathway. Though it is a partial oxidation process, this do not require oxygen. It can happen in the absence as well as in the presence of oxygen. In the past, oxygen was not there. And the second reason is it can occur in cytoplasm. This do not require any special organelle or even any membranous structure. And the third reason is every living organism that wants to extract energy from glucose can perform this metabolic pathway. But in the absence of oxygen, only 2 ATP molecules can be obtained from single molecule of glucose. If you look at the present day organisms, they can extract more energy from glucose. When oxygen is available, present day organisms can obtain 36 to 38 ATP molecules from glucose, which is 18 to 19 times more than the number that is possible only with glycolysis. Question is, why glycolysis is still maintained? Studies of metabolism of contemporary organisms show that only those cells that were able to perform glycolysis in the past were able to survive early competition of life. Later, improvement in catabolism of glucose was built over this success. So during the course of evolution, instead of discarding glycolysis, cells have started utilizing this as a starting point to extract more energy from glucose. So these are the reasons why even now in present day organisms, almost all living cells that possess cytoplasm and which extracts energy from glucose perform this process of glycolysis. Now let's see fate of pyruvate. If oxygen is not there, pyruvate enters into the process of fermentation. If it is alcoholic fermentation, there is production of ethanol and carbon dioxide. This is more common in yeast cells. If it is lactic acid fermentation, there is production of lactic acid, but there is no evolution of carbon dioxide. Lactic acid fermentation is common in bacteria like Lactobacillus, as well as in human muscle cells. In human muscle cells, lactic acid fermentation happens if there is intense activity. In the presence of oxygen, pyruvate enters into aerobic respiration. During aerobic respiration, complete oxidation of pyruvate happens by link reaction and TCA cycle. So during all these oxidation processes, whatever electrons that are removed, they are all transferred to electron transport chain. This electron transport chain is coupled with oxidative phosphorylation. So at the end of aerobic respiration, there is production of maximum of 38 ATP molecules. The two ATP molecules that I have written here are not produced during the process of fermentation, but these are obtained as a net gain from the process of glycolysis only. Then what is the use of fermentation as far as energy production is concerned? Let me explain. Inside living cells, NAD, that is nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, is available in limited quantity. In the sixth step of glycolysis, these NAD molecules act as electron acceptor, undergoes reduction and form NADH. As these molecules are limited in number, they should be able to give away their electrons so that they can undergo oxidation and can be available in order to carry out sixth step of glycolysis. In the case of aerobic respiration, NADH molecules undergoes oxidation easily because they have oxygen which act as electron acceptor in electron transport chain. But in the case of fermentation, this external electron acceptor is not available. So the main purpose of fermentation is to provide organic compounds that act as electron acceptor. Thereby, the reduced NADH molecules can undergo oxidation. Though fermentation is not directly involved in ATP production, because of fermentation, even in the absence of oxygen, there is regeneration of NAD, so that glycolysis can happen without any interruption and cells can obtain 2 ATP molecules continuously. That is about glycolysis. Hope it is useful.